Now, the single-player campaign, I remember I was here earlier this spring, and you kind of took me through a lot of the beats of it. But when do you guys kind of define what that game is going to be? And I mean, are there sort of the lost levels from single-player? Like you had this one mission and you decided to pull it out. I mean, do you move missions around? I mean, how much changes? Because it feels like by the springtime, you kind of know the game you're building and you're just executing it. But is there a lot of iteration and change?
Yeah, well, definitely that first year there was a lot of work on the designs for the campaign. Nothing, I think this is probably our first game ever where a level that we actually started creating, every single one of those actually made it. I think we've always cut levels in every game that we've made. I can't think of one where we haven't. This is actually the first game that once it went into production, I think that's just our pre-production pipelines have gotten a lot more. Good, we're a lot better at it. We've been doing it a lot longer. We still have plenty to learn coming off of this project too. But everything that actually went into production made it into the game. There was ideas and there were things on paper that didn't make it in. There were portions of levels that when you're executing. That may or may not make it for different reasons, like whether or not the pacing of the level or how you want to execute on that vision. So yeah, some of that stuff doesn't necessarily make it, but as far as like every single level that went into production on this game made it into the game.
Now, you guys from your camps of building your parts of the game, how are you involved in the single player? Are you guys kind of playing it, giving feedback, or how does it work? Because obviously you're doing, in some ways, completely separate games, but as you said, Dan, things do kind of move over from weapons and stuff like that.
This is the first game that I haven't really had any direct involvement with single player development. I mean, Dave Anthony and I have a weekly meeting where we sit down and talk about stuff.
Trade secrets.
Yeah, and I give feedback on things that I've experienced in single player. A lot of times I'll play a level and I'll just send him a page of notes of things that feedback that I have, and I think that goes, he considers it and makes decisions based on the feedback of a lot of people. But multiplayer has become such a large game in and of itself, and a lot, Mark talks about how this game has turned into 3 games really, and multiplayer itself is more than just one game, because we realized early on, or even at the end of last project, that we're really trying to make a game for a very wide audience, a lot of different audiences. So you have a lot of casual players who like to play multiplayer a certain way. You have a lot of very competitive players who like to play a game a certain way. And trying to do a one-size-fits-all multiplayer game just doesn't work. You have to be able to cater to those targeted audiences. And so because multiplayer has become so big, that's sort of, that's been my focus 99% of the time on this project.
Wow. Now, Jimmy, what about you? I mean, obviously, there's Zombies has its own campaign, and in a way, I mean, you're sort of in many ways building. Yeah,
I mean, like Dan said, Zombies has grown, and we even have like a Zombies team, a dedicated group of people. But the great thing that Treyarch affords is that we all experience the game in our time when we can, but we can give feedback wherever it's needed, and everybody's open and listening. And me on Zombies, people are knocking on my door and going, "Hey, this thing great," or "This thing sucks," and we do that all over the place. Right. If I know a certain designer's on a level, I might talk to him or Dave and say, "Oh, I experienced this, and this was my opinion." And
so, are you guys playing through like the single player or the campaign of this? I mean, are most people at Treyarch playing through it by like spring of this year? I mean, how early do people get to kind of jump in?
Well, yeah, I tried to wait. This was like I said, this is the first time I was like, I want to actually, because I haven't played a COD game without knowing the game.
Right.
Since COD 2. Like that was the first game I didn't work on or know about and played it. And since then I've been on or seen the games early. So this game I waited and I waited and I waited as long as I could, and then finally I was hearing buzz and jumped in and started playing, and
What about you, Dan? I mean, is that something where you're playing?
Yeah, we play, I play, occasionally I'll play a level here and there. It's something that, because multiplayer and single player campaign are so intertwined in terms of the fiction, we have to be aware of everything that's going on both sides of the development process. But it's it's like I said,
shared resources between the teams as well.
Right.
So
yeah, like I said, the weapons team is shared.
And sometimes there'll be obviously levels and areas from the single player campaign that inspire multiplayer levels.
Yeah, we do a little bit of both back and forth. I think some of the multiplayer levels, of course, were used sort of in Strike Force environment as well. So you get a little bit of a mix of cross-pollination on both sides in that respect. But
cool.
I think there's been a little bit of cross-pollination, I think, for everything. I mean, even weapons, a lot of the weapons were developed sort of The MMS scanner, for example, was a multiplayer developed weapon attachment. That was something that we thought was really cool as kind of an anti-camper device, and the sort of that future tech and being able to see through walls. And that was fun, and it worked in single player as well.
Yeah, and on the weapons front for zombies, you have some cross-pollination. The zombies is inside the multiplayer engine, so you have cross-pollination there on the technology side with all the new modes and leaderboards and statistics and custom games and all that stuff. It's like, definitely those guys are, Dan is also, working with Jimmy and Rez on the, at a high level on that stuff. And Pete, our lead programmer, is working with our, on zombies, is working with the lead programmers on multiplayer. So there's definitely a lot of that going on.
There's actually a good point that we haven't talked about how, zombies was originated in the single player executable and kind of in that part of the game, and it used all the single player tech in both World at War and Black Ops 1. This game, at the beginning, we switched it over to be working in the multiplayer side of the game, so it gets the benefit of all of the other social features and all the networking technology and that sort of thing.
Absolutely.
Yeah,
I think the fans have been asking for that too. Stats, more stats.
And that was always, it sounds like
how we
from the
kill zombies.
beginning, it was always the idea was to build up zombies in a big way, obviously deliver on MP and single player, but in many ways it's, adding even more to this game now because you've got 3 games in one.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I think the fans spoke pretty loud and clear during the Black Ops portion of last year, and so
Even with DLCs and stuff.
it had its own DLC. The fans really enjoyed it, and it was just, there was no question that was going to be its own third game mode. We actually built up the team a lot more than it's ever been. They have their own part of the building there, and we themed it out for them, and they literally live. They literally live in the land of zombies.
In zombie land.
There's, it's something to see.
Awesome. All right, well, when we come back on the bonus round, we're going to talk about multiplayer and what the team did to push it to a new level in Black Ops 2.
Ready for Black Ops 2? Be sure to watch Jeff Keighley and the team behind Black Ops 2 showcase the game's launch live as it happens from New York City. Tune in Monday, November 12th at midnight to watch GTTV Live Call of Duty Black Ops 2 World Launch for insider access to the biggest game launch of the year.